Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Prophets Kings 1 chapter 15 in a clear and simple way, step by step.
Okay, to really set the stage for our explainer today, we need to remember exactly where we left off. You know that great, unified, golden age nation of Israel? Well, it's permanently fractured. It's split right down the middle into two rival kingdoms. The kingdom of Judah down in the south, and the kingdom of Israel up in the north. The founding kings of this divided era, Rehoboam in the south and Jeroboam in the north, have recently passed away. So today, we're picking up the historical timeline right after this massive split, and we're going to focus strictly on the literal, on-the-ground events in history.
To do this, we'll be using a traditional method of study known as Peshat. Now, Peshat simply refers to the plain, simple, or literal meaning of a text. So no, we aren't going to dive into deep, symbolic, allegorical, or Kabbalistic interpretations today. Instead, we're committing to a clear, step-by-step, verse-by-verse walkthrough. We want to know exactly who did what, when, where, and why. It's all about truly grasping the historical narrative of these ancient kings. All right, here's our agenda for unpacking this incredibly dense chapter chronologically. Number 1, context and Abijam's reign. Number 2, King Asa's righteous reforms. Number 3, Asa's war and alliances. Number 4, Nadab and Baasha of Israel. Number 5, key concepts and clarifications. And finally, number 6, lessons and a chapter recap. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Context and Abijam's reign. The text opens in verse 1 by telling us that a man named Abijam became king over Judah. But right out of the gate, his spiritual report card is, well, it's tragic. The text says Abijam committed all the sins his father had done before him, and his heart was just not fully devoted to the Lord. He's directly contrasted with his famous forefather, King David. Now you might be wondering, why wasn't his kingdom just torn away immediately? Well, the text actually explains that despite Abijam's failures, God provided a lamp. The Hebrew word there is near, in Jerusalem. This meant God deliberately kept the royal line alive and the city secure, specifically for the sake of David, who had lived faithfully. It's kind of amazing. David's past devotion was literally acting as a protective shield over a currently unfaithful Judah.
Looking closely at verses 1 through 8, we get the hard historical facts of Abijam's time on the throne. He actually took power in the 18th year of King Jeroboam's reign up north, but his own rule was incredibly short, literally just 3 years in Jerusalem. The text notes his mother was Maacah, the daughter of Abijam, which establishes his royal lineage. And what exactly characterized these 3 short years? Continuous, bitter border wars with Jeroboam of Israel. There was absolutely zero peace between the north and the south. After a violent and spiritually hollow reign, verse 8 tells us Abijam died. He was buried in the city of David, and the crown naturally passed down to his son, Asa.
Section 2. King Asa's righteous reforms.
Now verses 9 through 13 map out a massive, multi-step religious reform. Asa's reign begins in the 20th year of Jeroboam, and unlike his father, Asa actually did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. He initiates this massive societal cleanup. Step 1, he expelled the male shrine prostitutes, the Kedoshim, from the land, completely erasing that pagan practice. Step 2, he removed all the idols his fathers had made. But Step 3 is where we see his incredible courage. He actually deposed his own grandmother, Maacah, from her powerful position as Gavira, or the Queen Mother. Why on earth would he do that? Because she had made a repulsive idol. And Step 4, Asa cut that idol down and burned it publicly in the Kidron Valley. Just imagine the sheer willpower it took for a young king to publicly strip his own grandmother of royal power just to protect the spiritual integrity of the nation. Absolutely wild.
Let's clarify exactly what Maacah had made. It was an Asherah pole. Basically, an Asherah pole was a sacred wooden symbol or idol dedicated to a pagan fertility goddess, which was completely, 100% forbidden by the laws of Moses. So, by chopping it down and burning it, Asa was drawing a hard, uncompromising line in the sand. Now verses 14 and 15 do offer a realistic little caveat here. The text mentions that Asa didn't remove the high places. Those were unauthorized local altars where people offered sacrifices. But it clearly states that Asa's heart was fully committed to the Lord all his life. He even brought the dedicated silver, gold, and sacred articles back into the temple, completely restoring proper, centralized worship.
Section 3. Asa's War and Alliances.
Doing the right thing didn't mean Asa's life was going to be easy. Far from it. Over in the northern kingdom of Israel, a hostile new king named Baasha has taken power, and he aggressively moves against Judah. Verses 16 and 17 explain that Baasha went up and fortified a town called Ramah.
Ramah was deeply strategic. It sat on a crucial trade route just 5 miles north of Jerusalem. Baasha's goal here was straightforward and brutal: create a total economic and physical blockade. By militarizing Ramah, Baasha literally tried to prevent anyone from leaving or entering Asa's territory. Judah was basically being completely suffocated.
Asa has to act fast. And in verses 18 through 22, he executes a bold tactical treaty. He takes all the remaining silver and gold from both the temple and his own royal palace treasuries, and he sends these immense riches straight to Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram in Damascus, proposing a military alliance. Asa's message is desperate but clear. Take this gift and break your treaty with Baasha of Israel, so he will retreat from me. And you know what? It works perfectly. Ben-Hadad agrees and attacks Israel from the north, conquering key towns like Aijalon, Dan, and Abel-Beth-Maacah. This forces Baasha to completely abandon his blockade at Ramah so he can defend his northern flank. And Asa? He drafts all the men of Judah to carry away the very stones and timber Baasha had used and uses those materials to fortify his own border cities of Geba and Mizpah. Talk about a brilliant strategic reversal.
Section 4. Nadab and Baasha of Israel.
Okay, before we jump completely up north, verses 23 and 24 summarize the rest of Asa's life, noting that in his old age his feet became diseased and he was eventually buried with his fathers, leaving behind a massive 41-year legacy of stability. But up north, it is a completely different story. Verses 25 and 26 introduce us to Jeroboam's son, Nadab. Nadab takes over the kingdom of Israel, but his rule is incredibly brief, literally only 2 years. Instead of turning to God, Nadab works perfectly in his father's evil, idolatrous ways. Then, a man named Baasha from the tribe of Issachar plots against him, actually assassinates him, and violently seizes the throne.
So how exactly did this assassination happen? Verse 27 gives us the vivid location, Gibbethon. This was a Philistine town. Nadab and all the armies of Israel were actively besieging this town, deeply engaged in warfare against a foreign enemy, when Baasha brutally betrayed his own king right there in the military camp and struck him down. It was a chaotic, incredibly violent military coup right from within the ranks.
And Baasha didn't just stop at killing the king. Verses 28 through 30 detail an absolutely terrifying purge. As soon as Baasha began to reign, he exterminated Jeroboam's entire family. He did not leave a single breathing soul from Jeroboam's line. He destroyed them absolutely. Now, while Baasha's actions were incredibly ruthless, the text makes it explicitly clear that this actually fulfilled the harsh prophecy spoken earlier by God's prophet Ahijah, the Shilonite. Because of Jeroboam's immense sins and the idolatry he forced on Israel, provoking the Lord to anger, his dynasty was violently erased from history. Verses 31 through 34 then conclude the chapter by noting Baasha ruled for 24 years in Tirzah, but tragically, he committed the exact same sins as the dynasty he had literally just exterminated.
Section 5. Key Concepts and Clarifications. This brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between the two nations during this specific historical window. In the south, Judah had Abijam, who reigned just 3 years and left an evil legacy. But then came Asa, who reigned a massive 41 years with a righteous legacy, providing incredible national stability. Meanwhile, in the north, Israel had Nadab, ruling just 2 years with an evil legacy, followed by his assassin Baasha, who ruled 24 years and stubbornly continued the exact same evil legacy of Jeroboam.
We can really boil this entire era down to a tale of two enduring legacies: David's lamp versus Jeroboam's sin. In Judah, God's promise to King David provided a lamp, this sort of institutionalized grace that allowed the nation to survive bad kings like Abijam and ultimately pave the way for righteous reformers like Asa. The kingdom remained intact because it was built on a righteous foundation. But over in Israel, Jeroboam's institutionalized idolatry acted as a fatal curse. It just invited constant instability, military betrayal, assassination, and the total dynastic collapse we just saw with Nadab.
Section 6. Lessons and Chapter Recap.
History provides some incredibly relevant lessons for us today. First, doing what is right often requires hard, costly choices. Asa had to empty his royal and religious treasuries just to save his nation from a total blockade. Second, toxic influences must be removed, even if it's family. Asa's bravery in deposing his own grandmother Maacah shows us that true integrity sometimes demands very difficult, painful boundaries. Third, a genuine commitment to values outlasts personal flaws.
Asa wasn't completely perfect. He didn't manage to remove all those local high places, but his core heart was committed, and that is what defined him. Finally, the actions of leaders profoundly impact generations, for better, like David, or for worse, like Jeroboam.
If there is one core summary to take away from our verse-by-verse walk through this chapter, it's this. Despite the intense political complexities, severe border wars, and bitter family drama, King Asa's fundamental dedication to the Lord is what ultimately defined his 41-year legacy. A righteous heart brings lasting stability not just to an individual life, but to an entire community.
Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.
As we wrap up this explainer, we want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Baasha has cemented his violent rule in Israel, but he's walking in the exact same sins as the king he just assassinated. So will this bloody cycle of violence in Israel continue to spiral out of control, or will a righteous king finally rise in the north? Join us next time as we find out.